even though she could use that word in the right context. And I asked Jane afterwards, where did you, because I hadn't taught them that word. She said, no, we did that last year. But she's the only one that used it comfortably. But now, in that group, you have a child who is in receipt of learning support, you have a child who's a resource child, if whatever the word for that is, and you've also the highest achiever in terms of written tests. I'm not going to say, and you could not possibly guess from that. So look at the leveler that oral language work is, So I noticed, again, general classroom behaviour became different, that there was an increased sense of trust and respect. It wasn't quantifiable, but I felt it. There was a different pedagogical relationship because I'm getting to know them now as people. And the parents commented on this, and the other teachers commented on it as well. So discussions were filmed, parents would read typed transcripts at home, share them with the children, and if they wished, and provided me with feedback. There was a detailed reflective journal. Colleagues, inspectors sat in and participated. I have great stories about that. Parents viewed film sessions and children read over. So all of this is open and accountable, and people can make comments and critique it. And I wasn't hiding any data from anybody. The children began to use the language, especially in that first school, in the disadvantaged school. The second school is a more mainstream school, co-ed, as you can see. I agree with because, and I disagree with because, and that language filtered out into the yard, and another teacher videoed, or witnessed rather, a fight being stopped with children using that language, which she was impressed with. These little boys in the disadvantaged school, they were becoming more critical. I read Cinderella, and I said, so do you think, the prince really loved Cinderella? Do you think he really loved her? Like, would he have danced with her if she was wearing her raggy clothes? These were 7-year-olds. No way, miss. His friends at all have been mocking him. So there's a sense here in 7-year-old boys of a trophy wife or a wag. They had this awareness that he loved her for different reasons, and we kind of talked more about that. They were becoming more critical. So I often say to teachers, ask the open-ended questions. Don't say, hold up the picture of Humpty Dumpty. How many buttons on Humpty's coat? What colour is his coat? Because these are all one right answer question. Why is Humpty up on the wall? I know, teacher, he had short little legs and he couldn't see what was making all the noise. Pure Piaget. Yeah, he couldn't see what was coming, so someone had to put him up on the wall. The teacher pleaser. Isn't it very dangerous for an egg to be up on a wall? And then the little philosopher, Sarah, says, now, I'm asking your forgiveness in advance for my existentialism. I was becoming more critical as this was going on, and I struggled to articulate and make sense of what I was finding, and make sense of trying to extract evidence, because I was loving this. So I'm saying, am I living to my values? Am I just doing what I like doing? I had to critique that. And I was also beginning to question things like wearing uniforms, straight lines, fire alarms, and all sorts of things. The kids became thoroughly critical of everything to do with school. But why is that, teacher? But why is that? And after sessions, they would come into a maths class and say, I can think of 6 better ways you could do that sum. Or religion. Seated at the right hand of the Father. What's that about? Did the Father have a body too? And I said, ask Father Bob. I don't know. and things like, how do we learn to be? How do we learn to be a little girl? What are the literatures that inform how we become little girls or little boys? And I read them the story of the paper bag princess. And I said, well, why is it always the prince doing the rescuing? Because in the paper bag princess, the princess rescues the prince. And Claire said, well, I think I know why princes were always the hero of the clothes. Girls had to wear tight tops that you pulled strings on, and they wore high heels, glass, like you can't run or you can't escape or nothing like. But the prince, he wore like leggings and Ugg boots. And then this one, like Pop Up Barbie now, like, and things like that, like brats, like this is Cork, right? Like, so like, are they trying to get like small kids to go back to those times, like dollied up all the time? Like, you have to be wondering about stuff like that. And they were. These kids then began to critique billboard ads. And said, one girl said, I was at the motor show or the boat show, and they had women like in their underwear. And you're saying, well, who's buying the boats? Who's buying the cars? Why is there a girl in her underwear? one child said if you were to look at the Sunday Times magazine and you were an alien, you think women's job was to lie on sofas in their bare feet. You wouldn't know the answer at the back of the Sunday Times. I also had a book called Yellow Bird, Black Spider. I challenge you all, take this, have a dinner party, have a few glasses of wine. This will open up discussion amongst adults or anybody. The little bird who wants to do his own thing, who wants to be free to sing and play the guitar and sail in a boat and live in a hotel rather than nest, seeing worms and all. And the black spider who keeps challenging him. And I was changing now from the type of teacher who would read that book and say, this book is about freedom, lads. This is a great book about freedom. We're going to read this book. Instead of which I'd say, what do you think this book is about? So I read The Yellow Bird, Black Spider with 5 different classes, and this particular class thought it was about freedom. And then I thought it was about freedom too, because I learned from them. So Paul said, I disagree with some people and I agree with others who said that freedom is doing whatever you want, but only in a way. You can only have freedom if you're alone, because if you were really free to think about what you like and say what you like and do what you like, well, you could do all bad things with your freedom, and it could be the baddest thing ever for other people. And, you know, freedom could sometimes be good, sometimes it could be the baddest thing ever. Now, I didn't, as I say, come in and say that book's about freedom. There was another book that I'm going to show you some clips for. I began to study how could I further develop these dialogical pedagogies, and the statements that began to be, the children began to show an ability to critique and to have insights into subtexts. So this is a story, is this 10 minutes?
Yes, I'm
Yes.
just getting it out.
This is a story about a frog and a toad, and the toad wants to wear his swimsuit. It's an Arnold Lobel story. Really weird swimsuit, and the poor frog is supposed to keep all the animals away, but they all turn up to watch. And I showed that, I read it to the children. I said, well, are they mocking him? And this is what I learned.
He was acting silly instead.
One thing a poorness says when you allow children to disagree with each other, because of course they're going to start disagreeing with the teacher, and this is what happens in this clip. But look at how respectfully it's done. Again, it's about the same story.
Yeah, I think I agree a little bit.
And you could see in that clip that I was just a participant and I was just giving my point of view. I said, I think, and they disagreed. So constantly checking back and reading. And I brought this work to my group, and they critiqued it. And I remember somebody saying, read Popper and read Russell, because this is about conforming to the herd and being, speaking for yourself, and all of this critical reading, and constantly checking back the values again all the time. And then, is there evidence for the claims? We're moving into the evidence area. Look at the reports are up on NEARI if you want to read them. I'm going to just show you this clip and then finish on this. Say to the kids, would you still agree with what you said? Because now you can revise what you said. And Paul said, no, I still agree with what I said. It often strikes me when we're on about what the frog and the toad and da-da-da-da. They're not even whole human, for God's sake. They're animals. They're made up for a story. So he doesn't get the anthropomorphological idea of dressing animals up in. But Jenny, whom you'll see in a minute, age 20-something now, said, Paul, what's the point? What's it about? The teacher said, what's the author trying to tell us? Like, we don't believe the stories either, but we're trying to think what the point is. So is this work sustainable? So I met as we watched the videos, and the minute I took out the Arnold Lobel, went, oh my God, I so remember that. And they gave me huge amounts of data. I'll just show you a tiny clip. A load of data there, so they broke down barriers between us a little bit. It was such a respectful space. They told me stuff that I didn't know, that these conversations carried on out in the yard, that it gave her the agency and the autonomy to go over to people like Jack, who talked about the consumerism and globalization, and she said, I would normally mix, but I could go over and say, I really agree with what you said today. And so the significance at a personal level, at a professional level, changed me, totally changed me, and changed my practice. I've become a zealot. It led to me writing a book. I kept talking about this, and people said, why didn't you write it down? So I did. Institutional. The CT and BT approach is now part of the revised language curriculum. So it has had an institutional influence. And ASHTR, the CT and BT approach, is meeting all the targets of ASHTR. They have embraced it as well. The academic book award, which I was really astounded by in the UK LA, because they said they loved the mixture of the academic theory mixed with the children and the real classroom practice. and it's course text in loads of places. And I believe it or not, because there was nobody else there at the time, I became the UK LA Ambassador for Literacy in Ireland, which, and that's me finished.